guys. How are you all? Thank you guys for being here. It's been a couple days. Look, I almost didn't even come on tonight, but I thought, you know what? I do have some things to say about this. And I was kind of jumping around from different people who were there in person. So for those of you guys who may not have read the title, you probably did, but Richard Allen was found guilty on all counts. And I was really shocked by this. I think a lot of people were shocked. A lot of people were not. It's kind of crazy, but I thought we should just hang out for a little bit and kind of go through some of the people who were there. So that's the plan. I also want to show you just a short little clip from the local news and just hang out for a little bit. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for joining me, especially on a sort of a late notice. I appreciate it. Mayla's mom, I'm beyond shocked. Let's see. Yawning greyhound. So this is my problem. And it's hard. I didn't report on every day, every step of the way, because we can't hear it and we couldn't see it. So, I've just seen what other people have said. I've kind of heard no to that. To your question, Yawning Greyhound says, did Richard Allen give any details that weren't commonly known? And I do want to say, since you brought that up, the lawyer, he actually wasn't there, but I watched him as well. And I don't think we'll have time to get to his tonight, but he said, I don't think they proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's really hard you have this jury that's sequestered. You have confessions. It's really hard to get past that in a trial. You have an expert on the stand who, if they may not be able to show how A and B lines up with C, but they are an expert and those kind of things. So he wasn't really surprised, in my opinion, but seemed, disappointed, not surprised. Hey, K-Braze. Hey, Mo. Hey, B-Crumbs. Hey, you guys. He never mentioned anything about going through the creek. Mayla's mom said, hey, Connie. Teacup. The Real Plant Diaries. Hey, Tony. K-Braze. Tess. Hey, Jen. Adrian. I don't feel he is guilty. The White Van, apparently, Mayla's mom said, and the Real Plant Diaries said that as well. Hey, Natasha. Shay, good to see you. Hey, Chloe Jade. Hey, Kate the Great. Wicked West. Alicia, Roro. Thank you guys for being here. Hey, Zoe, baby. Hey, Music City. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. First thing I want to pull up is this. This is raw video. Richard Allen's wife says this isn't over at all after guilty verdict. Now, there was a lot of emotion. I can't imagine. These people, think about it. It's been 7 years, and for everyone involved. And, oh, God, it's just tough. All right. Let's turn this up and watch this first. Isn't over at all. I can hardly hear it. This isn't over at all. All right, so I'm going to wait because I have a lot of things to say, but Melanie Little really hits on a lot of those points I want to hit on. The first stop we're going to make this evening is with Lawyer Lee. So she was there. I'm just going to play the first couple minutes. We're going to pause along the way. Fair use, of course. I'm going to share the links to all the creators that we're watching, so you guys can go check it out on your own time if you want to watch it in full. It's really interesting because they have very different opinions. Okay. Because next we're going to watch Hidden True Crime. And then we're going to stop by with Melanie Little. She wasn't there. However, she's done, different podcasts with many people who are there. And she's an attorney. And I think that she says a few things in just far more brilliantly than I could ever say them. Lemon Lime says many YouTube people that were in the courtroom were convinced after seeing and hearing the confessions. Hopefully we will get to hear those one day ourselves. Actually, Lemon Lime, I am so glad that you bring that up, because that's actually what I wanted to start with. Now, I posted this earlier. This is just a quick 3-minute video. This kind of shocked me earlier. Let me see. 12 channels and a reporter act as jurors. Okay, this is on Hidden True Crime. So I'm going to share this link in the chat right now too. Let's just listen to this quickly.
These random people who have been following the case for a long time to join me, and we'll discuss our opinions as if we are the jury. So introducing in clockwise order in my screen, we have Steve from True Crime Web. Hi, Steve. He has law enforcement experience and has done a lot of testing on the case. We have Deb's True Crime Notebook.
Hello.
Deb does quite a few update videos on the case, and taking a lot of notes. So thank you for joining, Turbo.
Thank you.
Welcome. Teddy, who's not on screen.
Now I've watched this bottom left. She reports for the local news.
Down the hill. There's a link to that in the description below. We all know who she is. Aspen Connor, who's still in Delphi for almost a month.
You forgot ex-roomie.
Okay.
I had to get away from you. That's when I left Indiana. Finally, number 9 is Kristen behind the crime door. Hi, Kristen. She has done many videos and live chats about the case. We are waiting for 1/10 person, and I'll join Adam when we're ready to go. So this is not...
Justice Shane, thank you for mentioning that. I meant to say that when we got started. I so appreciate anybody who served this country. Many people in my family, your guys' family. I talked to one of my friends today whose father was going around getting all the free treats the restaurants would offer him and stuff. And I hope all veterans take advantage of that. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And yeah, happy Veterans Day. Thank you for serving. Thank you for your service if you did.
Tom, do you think how we think this jury is thinking, or
no, how we would vote if we were on the jury? Hi, Marv. So last person is Marv from Beyond the Evidence. Thank you for joining.
How we would vote if we were on the jury.
you.
Now.
Hi, Marv, line leader. For
all of these people were not there.
So Marv, I think all of us just voted guilty. Would you vote guilty?
I'm right there with you.
So you vote guilty. So
yep.
I was concerned this would happen.
They all voted guilty. That kind of shocked me. Here's the moment where they vote.
Hands. Would you vote guilty?
Guilty. Teddy, you have to be on the screen, Teddy and Turbo.
Oh. It's pretty crazy because, just last week we talked about someone who said that the phone evidence didn't line up with... Here, I don't want to quote it wrong, so I will find it. Let's go back to Lawyer Lee and watch her as soon as she comes out of the courtroom. I'll find what I'm referencing. Now, let's hear the different opinions because they are all over.
On all 4 counts. 2 counts related to abduction and murder, and 2 counts related to intentional murder.
Me too.
Of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. So the case has concluded with a guilty verdict, obviously unanimous by the 12 jurors. And the verdict was announced. Only 14 members of the public were permitted in. It was a miracle that I got in.
Why?
Thanks entirely.
Why only 14 members? See, that's something I don't like about this. I do not like the secrecy. That's ridiculous. At one point it was 22. Lauren from Hidden True Crime said all of a sudden one day it went down to 17 for whatever reason. That's ridiculous. It's not right. There are so many people who have followed this from the beginning and care so much. Even locals, just locals. I have a huge problem with that.
To my line sitters, and in terms of
huge
the
problem.
Reaction of people, the judge made it extremely clear that people had better be very quiet and very respectful. She may have already known the verdict because she immediately said, you need to be, this has been a long haul for the defendant, for the defendant's team. She said, and for the prosecution. So she may have, gotten word of what it was. They may have presented it to her. So the verdict was read in open court. Honestly, it took no time at all. And the verdict was rendered. There was immediate reaction from Richard Allen's family, as of course you would expect. His wife was just hysterical.
Can you imagine being the family? I mean, I just can't. Okay, so let me drop her channel again in the chat as we listen, because you guys may want to go watch them all in full. So
very quiet, but just devastated. And then additionally, his mother also was extremely upset. People were very respectful. There was no noise. There was a small kind of sound, just very brief, when the first guilty
we're going to get to that,
read.
Mila's
Now,
mom.
if he was found guilty on any one of those counts, it was pretty clear it's going to be all of them.
Thank you, Shay.
And that's the way it was. He was guilty on all 4 counts. And they just read through them one at a time. Guilty, 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 guilty. And then, you know, it was over. He was led away and he was handcuffed again and then taken away, still wearing his street clothes that he had been allowed to wear because of the fact that he was being tried, so that it wouldn't prejudice the jury. Now, there was a lot of reaction outside the courtroom, and I don't mean, I think there was a lot of emotion outside the courtroom. The majority of people here watching the case have been on the side of Richard Allen not being guilty. And
the majority of the people here watching the case. Now, this is her perspective. This is why I wanted to do this with you guys, because I was kind of flipping around watching earlier, and I thought that would be interesting, and we can just have conversation along the way. I did see one of you guys made a comment. It's sad she didn't talk about the family's reaction. I think she probably did that out of respect, Georgia says, wow, didn't think this man was innocent. Anyone that thinks it is pretty dumb. No offense. Well, here's the thing, Georgia. A lot of very smart people think that he could be. There are opinions all over, but there are a lot of things people are not happy with. Even if you just put the details of the case aside, the way he was treated in prison, going to prison instead of county jail, things like that, the secrecy of the trial. I think those kind of things really make people's antennas go up and they start asking questions. They're like, what the heck? Why? Let's keep listening though.
And were, I think,
we're going to
very devastated to find him, that he was found guilty by the jury. It seemed unjust, I think, to a lot of people. So there was talking about it, and then people fairly quickly dispersed. I think just kind of shocked is the way I would say it. There were signs out for people to carry, but no one really did. They've been there for days and blowing away and people fighting to keep them there. But in the end, they weren't really used for that purpose afterwards. I think there was just too much emotion for people to do that. I think there was a widespread belief that it was unfair. And so
a widespread belief that it was unfair. That's interesting. Hey, Maria. I was only like, I really want to hear from people who were there, and specifically attorneys. The lawyer, and Melanie Little weren't there, but they gave, their perspective is very interesting. That's why, but. We have to get outside of this, like thinking anybody who doesn't think like us or whatever is dumb. There's probably more to it. And especially when, like I said, there are so many smart people who think that, you really got to look and see why they feel that way. Hell, look at this woman. She's obviously a brilliant woman, in my opinion. And her opinion, well, let me just play it.
Outside the courtroom, I would say the majority of people were in that camp. And then, of course, there were some very definitely in the camp that this was justice, that Richard Allen was guilty and that he needed to be convicted. So all of that, it just sort of caused everybody to disperse. And it was a big surprise that only 14 people got in. And I'm not really sure why. There were still some extra spots. So I don't know.
There were still extra spots. So why? See, that makes me, I have to start asking questions. And Natasha, I'm so glad you said that. Not guilty does not equal innocent. Well, this even has to be said. Exactly. Did they prove the case beyond a shadow of a doubt? I hate that we weren't able to see and hear it for ourselves, but I have a lot of questions surrounding DNA at the scene. I just have a lot of questions. I don't see how you couldn't. And it's really hard for me. I have a hard time. Like, I don't want to hear from people who were there. I want to hear it for myself. Like, hearing from people there is better than nothing. Don't get me wrong. But I like to hear it for myself, Georgia, no, Lawyer Lee was in the courtroom. That's why I'm playing it. Yeah, she said the majority of the people there believed that it wasn't fair.
Know exactly what happened.
But I'm going to play some more.
Presence of the police was
that were really
huge, absolutely huge. There were, I've forgotten how many I counted, but something like 20 officers and law enforcement representatives in the courtroom, so that it was quite clear there wasn't going to be anything. They also had the most serious search as we went in. I mean, every day we've had to, take off jackets, put our backpacks through a scanner, sort of the usual thing that you might expect in a courthouse. But this time they were like, we are very serious. You'll be kicked out if you have anything that you shouldn't have. And I don't mean something dangerous, but I mean, if you had your smartwatch on and you forgot to take.
Okay, so let's just skip ahead just for a moment to see if we catch anything else before we go to our next person who
geofencing data. That wasn't something that came into.
Here we go.
There are a couple of reasons I think that it may have come out differently. The first, maybe even several. I forget the number. I'll just start telling you some things that I think might have made a difference. One is, on the outside, we know about some evidence that the jury did not know about. We know about third-party culprits. We know about the geofencing data. That wasn't something that came into evidence, so the jury did not hear that.
A lot of people question how they will feel if they did. Melanie Little will get into that more, so I'll wait for her. Lunch Lady, thank you for being a member for 15 months. I appreciate that so much. Appreciate you, and yeah, thank you. I hope you're doing well.
And so the jury is operating with the limited number of facts that are provided to them within the space, the confines of the courtroom. That's what they have to work with, and that's what they make their decision on. The judges make calls about evidence, and that is determining what exactly they see.
Now, the lawyer, also, has a lot of the pre-trial stuff that happened here, the calls that were made for certain evidence to not be allowed and things like that. Would people feel like it was more fair if those things would have been allowed?
I think, too, that for the jury to have looked at this evidence, they also saw things that we don't see. They were handed exhibits that we in the public didn't get to see.
Good point.
They were shown video that we didn't get to see. And there were some things that some of us in the courtroom could see that are difficult to convey to you. For example, and the biggest example of this I can think of is the confessions to his mother and to his wife, because we could hear those. It's audio only, it's not video, but we could hear, and we were able to actually hear the inflection and understand exactly what it was that he was saying. So we heard more than just words. Like when I go live at night and I tell you about that, I read the words that they said, but it's impossible for me to give you the full sense of what the audio is like. What was the inflection? What was the tone? Did he sound?
It truly is. And I don't know if we'll ever get to hear it. All right, so let's switch gears now. Here is Lauren from Hidden True Crime. She was also there, and this is her first reaction as soon as she comes out. Yeah, you guys, look. This channel is all about all opinions. If you cannot handle that, maybe you got to watch somewhere where not all opinions are welcome. I don't even see what's going on. I'm just seeing some of your comments in the chat, like Natasha's. which I agree with you. If it offends you to have conversation about actual facts and opposing opinions, you might have confirmation bias. All opinions are welcome, but be respectful about it. Absolutely. And thank you. Okay. And like, I definitely respect and love hearing opinions from all sides. That's why we're doing this. Like, these are kind of opposing viewpoints, right? But they were actually there, and that's the closest we get since we don't get to hear it or see it for ourselves. All right. So let's watch here for a few minutes.
Here, do you know what? Listen to me. I'm live right now. So guys, it's guilty. It's guilty, and people are asking me questions right now. I was inside the courtroom. I have Susan here, and I have Lexi, Libby's friend. So I'm going to talk to you guys, and I'm talking to everybody else here that's listening. I was in the courtroom, and the foreman came. They said guilty. There were tears. Libby's mother broke down right there, started crying, as did I.
So there you hear about the family's reaction. Now, great question, Mel, and good to see you. Will the full court trial ever be released to the public? I have no idea on these things. I don't know either. Like, from all these streams I've been watching, I've kind of seen the idea tossed around about transcripts, audio recordings. I don't know exactly what's going to be allowed, and if somebody here might know more, please, let us know.
I was right behind Kathy Allen, who was crying very, very hard. And she was sitting between Richard Allen's mother and Richard Allen's sister. And they both helped her and consoled her. And there were tears from the entire left side of the courtroom was Abby and Libby's family. And they were crying hard. And then again, Kathy was crying very hard. Richard Allen, I could only see the back of him really, but I didn't see any open emotion when the judge spoke to him after about the next date, possibly December 20th.
Think about the bridge guy video. The way I understand it, it's nothing like we were told. You don't, it's, for one, the image of him was the girls weren't trying to take video of him. They didn't even know him. They seemed to be just kind of being young girls, enjoying being outside, hanging out together. And the image of him was taken from way far back and zoomed in. It just, I don't know, things are so sketchy to me, and I don't think that means he's innocent. I just don't like the way the process has played out at all.
For the next set date to go over, he was just nodding. I could see the back of his head. And then after, we had to wait in there for quite a while to leave because they let the jurors leave first. And then by the time the jurors were out and completely gone from the courtroom, then jurors, Kathy.
Hold on, you guys. We had a little glitch, so let me just go back 10 seconds.
Then at that moment when we had to stand to let the jury go out of the courtroom, and the jury, we stood for the jurors. Kathy Allen had a very, very hard time standing. She was devastated, and she had to be lifted by both Rich. I saw him nodding on the side. I was in the back row.
It's so very sad because at the end of the day, there's a lot of victims in this. We have the victims of the crime, and then all of the families, because look how long this has played out. Look at all the games with the investigation. What was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe 2021, the FBI was asked to leave the investigation. Why? I don't know. I can't help. I feel so sorry for all of them. I truly do.
Bro. They had everyone that was public was in the very back. They had very first row was media, then everything else on both sides until the very back was for families. And then we were in the very back. Then after Richard Allen's, and then after Richard Allen's family left, and I'm saying this off memory. Okay, hold on, guys. After Richard Allen's family left, and it was Abby and Libby's family's time to go. They let them out before the public and the media as well. Before the media got out here, of course, to share all this news, they said, if anybody from Libby and Abby's family wants to go, then you guys can go. And at that moment, I noticed Becky, Patty, and Anna Williams.
I don't want to, I want to focus more on
Let the Allen family leave, and after the Allen family leave, they let Abby and Libby's family leave that wanted to first, before any of the media got out, right? Like giving them that opportunity to get out of there. And I did notice Anna Williams and Patty just embrace and cry. I saw Becky, thanking the police officers and law enforcement, many law enforcement in the back, full courtroom. My chair, something
around a little bit.
But we'll learn
Where
more
we
later.
go to Miss Melanie Little.
I'm crossing the street just for some
I
privacy.
want to be off of here by 8 so we can go support Melissa Jade, and then at 9:30 I know Bindi has a live and go over there too. But okay, here's when she gets in the car. I feel like
We've been listening to everyone for months, talking to anyone and everyone.
no,
And
I don't think they know whose hair it was.
yeah, and so I think full circle for
That's the
those
way
of
I
you that were on my members live. Well, personally, no, I'll just say this personally, like if you want to know how I felt when the jury was read, complete relief. That is how I felt.
Now, I know that they did another stream, her and her husband, and he kind of said, they believe justice was served, and they hope that this can help the town heal, because the town has had like a big, I forget how he worded it, but like this darkness over it basically. And yeah. Okay, her sisters. What? And then the DNA, then there was DNA as well, right? And they didn't find out whose that was. Correct? Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit again and go over to Miss Melanie Little. And I want to start from right here. And we're going to go to like 10 minutes because I think she has a lot to say that I enjoyed listening to. She was wearing her sister's hoodie. Thank you, AMAC, and thank you for being a member for 7 months. Yes, and okay, thank you, Shay. It's confusing, and without being able to be there or to hear it or see it, like, I don't know. It's like I have a lot of respect for anybody who's been following all along with watching people who have been there, because it's really frustrating for me. Jen and I talked about that, because I've talked about the case for years, just little bits, not super in-depth. Some channels have went so in-depth with every detail, not like that at all. But I definitely would have loved to follow the trial super closely, but without being able to hear or see it for yourself, like for me, it pushes me away, and that's unfortunate, honestly, because that should make us pay closer attention. But Shay says, I want justice for Libby and Abby. I don't think Richard Allen is the killer. Also, I believe it's more than one person involved in the crime. I've seen a lot of people kind of toss that theory around. Tammy, I don't know if he's guilty, but that definitely means reasonable doubt. That's a huge problem. That's cool, though. Other creators are talking about getting the transcripts. Are they? So I hadn't heard that yet. I just heard people like tossing around, will we be able to get audio or just transcripts, and that kind of thing. Connie says, I still think it's wrong for not televising it. Maria, I would think you would contact the courthouse, the clerk. They probably are very expensive. Yeah. And will people be able to get all of the evidence? And I know that there's still a gag order. I have some questions about that, but transcripts won't be available until the appeals process starts, Mela's mom says. All right, let's listen to Melanie Little.
Did, and I put a community post up, so hopefully some of
you.
So
Melanie was not there. However, she's brilliant. Okay, she is an attorney, and she's chatted with a lot of people who were there, and some that have been covering it super in depth for years.
were able to come over there and join us, and we were both kind of speechless. We were both kind of speechless when the verdict came in. We're like, huh? So I'm here for you. I'm here to hear what you guys have to say, what you guys want to talk about it. For those of you who did not hear yet, the jury has found Richard Allen guilty on all 4 counts. Guilty on all 4 counts, a jury of 12 in Delphi, Indiana, which is Carroll County, but they were bussed in from another county about 2 hours away. They were.
Can you imagine being bussed in, sequestered, and she's going to go into this a little more, but away from your families, only allowed to watch DVDs. Okay, think about it. Like, if you get to talking to the one person and their perspective's a certain way, and that's the only person you're talking to, it can sort of help shift your perspective. But if you think about, like, I have nothing but respect for the jurors, no matter what conclusion they come to, because I think about it like this. They're sequestered. They're stuck with only their own thoughts, and they're allowed, apparently, Melanie also gets into this, to talk to each other throughout the process instead of waiting until the end about the case. But, you hear about the confessions, you see the experts, like I explained to you guys, the lawyer, kind of got into. I don't think we'll have time to get to him, but if we do, we'll listen to him for a little bit. But just imagine that, and you kind of get in. I don't know. I just think that your frame of mind would be very different than if they weren't sequestered and if other evidence was let in. And you can kind of see how this could happen, right? Let me keep playing it though and listen to this.
Sequestered during the entire time of their deliberations and throughout the trial.
Oh yeah.
Without electronic.
Before I pause it, I meant to say this as well. I haven't watched Andrea Burkhart very much. I've watched a little bit from her, but you guys have made me really want to watch more. And the link for Melanie will be in the chat in just a second.
Without their families. And in my opinion, they did a due and thorough deliberation. Those are the catchwords we know from the Karen Reed case. Due and thorough deliberations. They never once came back with a note saying that they were deadlocked. They only came back once with a request to see some of the evidence.
Hey, Ava.
And I'm not even sure what it is that they asked to see, but they were led into the courtroom and they were able to see some of the evidence that they wanted to see.
She was there.
I think the only things that were in the courtroom that were not back in the jury room with them, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, were perhaps any videos that they wanted to see that needed to be played on a device where they could see it in the courtroom. And there were no questions. They were not allowed to have read back, so they couldn't ask for a read back. And they never once said, we're deadlocked. And my gut was that this was going to be a hung jury because
I thought so too. I really did. LawTube has sort of taken over like true crime for me, at least the court process. Not like when a case is breaking or cold or, something like that. But when we're going through the court process, like I want to discuss it with you guys and some of my friends' channels for discussion purposes. But to learn about things, I like to hear from them.
In my opinion, this is a very divisive case. And similar to the Karen Reed case, in which if you were on one side or the other, in my opinion, it was going to be very, very difficult to convince someone who thought that they had the wrong guy, that in fact, Richard Allen was guilty. And if you thought that Richard Allen was guilty, it might be very, very difficult for you to convince someone on the other side who said they didn't prove their burden to switch over to the guilty side. But I believe that they were out for a total of something like 17 hours. And they were allowed to discuss the case while the case was ongoing, which is a very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen that in any other state. But Indiana law has a provision that they are allowed to discuss the case while
interesting, right?
The case is ongoing. Here in New York, that doesn't fly. You can't start deliberating. You can't start discussing the case until after closing jury instructions are read and you are sent out to deliberate. That's when you can start discussing. And so many of the trials that we watch together, you know how that every single time the jury comes in the morning, after lunch, the judge says, did you see any outside influences? Did you watch any media on this case? Did you research anything on your own? And everyone has to say, no. But in this case, they were allowed to do that. And I thought maybe that would help them come to a verdict faster because they had been discussing it all along. But it was a long deliberation, many days. Somebody in the chat says maybe it was 20 hours. Somebody said 18 hours. I thought I heard Bob Motta say it was 17 hours and that was his actual estimate from the beginning, that that he was predicting was going to be.
When you guys are watching a trial, just like, because most of you guys are like me. I'm just a normal person who has an interest in true crime, an interest in justice. I want to see like people who hurt people to get what they deserve, right? I think most of us feel that way. You want innocent people who are hurt to get justice. If a jury comes back super quick, would you automatically think guilty? Like for me, I would, but the longer they take, that's when I start to be like, oh, is it going to be a hung jury? Is it going to be not guilty? Yeah, I'm just curious how you guys feel about that as far as how long it takes the jury to deliberate. We've watched quite a few trials together at this point over the last couple years.
About 17 hours. And here we are, a high of truth art, losing faith in juries. I've seen that a lot today. I've seen it a lot. It had been my opinion that I did not think the state met their burden. It had been my opinion from the deep dive that I did into this case with many of you, including all of the pretrial third-party culprit stuff that the jury was not going to be able to hear about.
Why? That there bothers me so much. That there sounds so ick. I'm sorry, you guys, forgive me. But that really does bother me. It's like, why? If it's just bullshit, then what did it matter? We've talked about this before. It just makes no sense. Chloe said, yes, that bothers me too. Like, yeah, if it's just complete conspiratorial bullshit, then what's the harm in, allowing them to put on the defense with a theory? Shay says, it depends on the length of trial and controversial evidence, in my opinion. Hey, Remy. Hey, Alex. It's infuriating that info is being kept from any jury. Well, she's going to get into that. So I was trying to kind of wait until she does, but she's going to talk about in just a moment. Well, do you think, though, we'll feel different when they realize all the things they weren't allowed to see? And, is that going to mess with their consciousness, which it's not their fault. They have no control over that. So I hope no one kind of tears themselves apart over it. But at the end of the day, it is very serious. We're putting this man away for most likely the rest of his life. Now, the lawyer, said it's possible he could get parole. There is something about after 20 years in Indiana, but I don't know anything about that. That's just, kind of what I heard from his stream. But yeah, Remy says, I watched Melanie a lot during Karen Reid and the same happened. It's not okay. Yeah, she kind of talks about that some. Let's keep
all of the people that the FBI had their focus on in the beginning of the investigation until the FBI was asked to leave the investigation in 2021. Certain theories that this crime scene may have indicated that it could have been some sort of ritualistic killing. I never saw the crime scene photographs. I know that they apparently were leaked on Twitter within the past day or two. I did not see them, and I'm glad, because I heard that once you see them, you cannot unsee them. But I thought there were so many questions and so many other people. I mean, Elvis Fields confessed to these crimes.
Right.
Confessed to them, to both of his sisters. His sister took a polygraph, and then he confessed when he said to one of the law enforcement officers that he gave a statement to, hey, if my spit was found on one of the girls, do you think, but I could explain it, do you think I'd be in trouble?
I'm going to let it play, even though she gets into some of the alternate theories and names and things like that.
Bridge with two other guys, and that he was involved in it. Like, this is all stuff that, in my mind, the jury, now that they're discharged, if they find out about this stuff that they were not allowed to hear about, is it going to change their opinion? It's not going to matter now. But as a juror in a case like this, when you're sending a person away for a potential up to 130 years in prison, is that something that as a juror, it may weigh on you to say, wait a minute, who is this guy, Elvis Fields? Who is this guy, Brad Holder? Who are these guys that were part of these Vinlanders? And they had all this stuff on their Facebook pages and we weren't allowed to hear about any of this stuff.
All right. Nate says, since they found him guilty, I truly hope he is guilty. I don't like to think about an innocent person imprisoned. Me either, but if we're honest with ourselves, it happens all the time. And if we're honest with ourselves, we could probably talk about a different case every year or every day of the year where the person was said to be innocent, or maybe after they were put to death was found to be innocent, or, whatever, different circumstances. But it does happen, and that is truly unfortunate. Sadly, wrongfully convicted people are imprisoned. Yep. Weber's gun cannot be excluded from the bullet, and it was a Sig Sauer just like Richard Allen's. Thank you, Tammy. Thank all of you guys who have been following so closely and have so much good information. Thank you for just joining the conversation. Mel says, do people who kill usually go for two able-bodied people at one time on their first go? You would think that someone who maybe had more experience might not. Some might, but not someone's first attempt. Sorry for the way I read that, all messed up. I think, unfortunately, we see predators go for able-bodied people all the time, whether it's their first or not. So I don't know, but it is an interesting kind of thing to ponder, multiple victims. There's a lot of things that I have a lot of questions about. Why was one of them redressed and the other one's clothes and one of them wasn't? I don't know. I don't know. There's so much. I think that once people are able to request different stuff and actually go through it, it's going to tell a little bit more of the story and we know that, right, from other discoveries that we've requested or evidence that we've went through. They never put on all the evidence. A lot of times, for one reason or another, they just don't. I was going to say it a little differently, but yeah, there's always stuff that was left out.
I don't know. I think that might weigh on my conscience if I was a juror for the rest of my life. And I think, in the Karen Reed case, eventually that third party stuff was allowed in. And so the jury got to consider it. So I have a lot of questions. I think there are a lot of appellate issues potentially. I think that the way he was held pre-trial is horrific, barbaric.
Yes, this is why I wanted to play it to hear. For one, she sees a lot of potential appellate issues. The way he was held pre-trial was barbaric.
And is something that should never be allowed to happen in the United States of America. I think, sadly, this case put a focus on that and shined a light where some people might not otherwise think that such things like this happened, that we're treating pre-trial detainees like prisoners of war. I think there was a lot of evidence that was not allowed in, other evidence that wasn't allowed in, the geofence data. Apparently, according to Sleuthy Goosey, who is one of the best on the internet, the geofence data was not allowed in by the judge, and it would have shown 3 other cell phones in the area of the body.
That was awesome. Shout out, but would have shown 3 other cell phones in the area
at what the state said were the time of the murders. And Richard Allen's was not one of them.
Richard Allen's was not one of them. I think we will have time to watch a moment or two of the lawyer. Here is what I was referencing that we had talked about like a week ago. Court TV had tweeted this out, and they also had the video link, which I have, but they said a former FBI forensic examiner says that data extracted from Libby's phone doesn't match the state's timeline for Richard Allen. Plus, an expert told the Delphi murders trial jury that Allen's behavior was consistent with the effects of solitary confinement. What do you think?
None of the witnesses that were called to the stand ever pointed him out and said, that's the guy, that's Bridge guy. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the sketches were never allowed in. Those two sketches, in my opinion, looked like two completely different people.
Mm.
None of the witnesses ever said it was a short guy.
You bet, Ellen.
Because if I was going to describe a man who was 5'4", that would certainly be in my description. He was a little guy. He was like little
Yeah.
pudgy, 5'4".
I agree with that. Okay, so for the sake of time, we can sit here and watch forever because she's very good. But here's her link. If you want to watch the rest of this, the link is there. Also, the Court TV tweet, here it is. And here's the video attached. I'm going to drop the link to that right now as well, in case anybody wants to look into that a little more. I was going to play it. I was sitting here thinking back and forth, like this or the lawyer, and I think we have to go with the lawyer, I mean, he's just so pleasant to listen to. He's just, here, let's have a listen with his, his reaction.
The feeling you get as a lawyer,
and I'll drop his link now.
Standing next to your client with their life literally on the line, and you just sit there and you wait, and you don't know, especially in this case when they've been deliberating for 20 hours. I think you feel pretty good about the job that you did. You presented the case, you made the jury think, you made the jury go back there and say, well, I get it that the cops arrested him, I get it that the prosecutors think that he did it, and they're pointing the finger at him. And a lot of the witnesses are pointing the finger at him,
Right,
kind of, in this case, a little bit different. But law enforcement definitely thinks he did it. Prosecutors definitely think he did it. Sometimes that alone is enough for the jury to just vote guilty.
That is crazy, but right? Like, these people trust law enforcement. They trust attorneys, prosecuting attorneys. They have faith in the system. And it's crazy because, the people that are looking through every single detail, they have a lot of questions. But these are your average people, right? And they're looking at thinking this is your average case and your average prosecutor. And why would people lie? Like, I don't know. It just makes you think.
And that happens sometimes in our system. It sucks. It's not how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Wow. So
But
many of you guys.
in this case, I think the defense lawyers can sit there and they can know we put on a fight. We explained the issues in the state's case. We put forth the holes that we saw, the reasons we think it was not our client. And the jury thought about it. And regardless of what the verdict is, the defense put up a fight. I am sure, as every defense attorney does, they're back there and they're wondering, did we do the right thing? Did we put on enough evidence? Did we, pick at the holes that were big enough and the holes that were in the jury's mind? And in a case like this, where the defense got to hear the questions from the jurors, you kind of get an understanding. In Florida, we have this, right? In civil cases, jurors are allowed to ask questions. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when they do, all eyes are on them. All ears are on them. And you really can learn what questions the jurors have. And Bob mentioned this morning, if you hadn't had a chance to check out the podcast this morning, whatever the verdict is, you should watch it. It's really interesting because we really talked about it from both perspectives on, I really pressed into him on, you could see how a juror would vote guilty on this. And he said yes, without much pushback, right? So I know that Bob has been somebody that's really been shining a light on this case. He's found a lot of issues in this case, and he said he leaned that he's factually innocent. But he said he gets it. 60 plus confessions. He's there at the time. He admits to being there at the time. There are issues. And so anybody, even a defense lawyer, right? We can feel horrible for our clients, right? We can feel horrible for the conditions that they're in prison, which I think his lawyers definitely feel that way in this case for Richard Allen. I'll tell you that right now. I guarantee they feel horribly for him. But at the end of the day, if the jurors hear his voice saying, I did it, if the jurors hear that,
great,
and that is enough to convict him, there was really never anything the lawyers are going to be able to do, right? Think about that.
if the jurors hear him say, I did it, and look, false confessions happen. Hell, that's another thing we could talk about probably every day of the year, or at least for many days in a row. False confessions, they do happen, but it's probably really hard for a jury to hear that over and over, and believe that he's innocent, even if he is. We don't know why these confessions happen. There's so much that's being kept out about the jail and the conditions there and the freaking patches and them admitting to wearing the patches. Hey, Jude, he could defend me anytime he wants. If the jurors were allowed to hear the geofence data, would that overrule? Well, Remy, I guess it would be, depending on those people and their opinions. That's one of the scariest things about all of this, especially when they're sequestered. They're not talking to anyone. They don't know anything. I don't know. You have to think it would almost get you like out of a normal state of mind and almost into like, not necessarily like a state of delirium, but almost. Remy says this whole trial was locked down, and why? Why have it kept away from the public? We're always thinking and saying wait until trial, except this was a letdown. False confessions happen for sure. 61, though? That really throws me. Such an insane number of confessions. But if he was confessing to things sometimes that didn't even line up with the evidence, and then you have these, like, the claims that came out in the defense's memorandum, I don't know. I don't know. Ooh, Tiffany, when I was 6 years old, I falsely admitted to something I didn't do. I still don't know why I felt compelled to admit it. That's so interesting. Remy, I have a theory about this. Trial wasn't moved. Small rural town, sequestered jury could possibly lead to rushed verdict. Desire for justice for such a tragedy. Oh, I could see that. Like, they want to go home. Apparently, they went in super early today, right? According to Lauren from Hidden True Crime. But I just can't get over all of the info we know, but the jury wasn't allowed to hear. So much info I had forgotten about until I listened to Shay and MJ last night. I was like, oh yeah, that's so crazy. I know, me too. I enjoyed that, but I fell asleep like maybe an hour into it. And so I didn't get to hear it all. I'm glad, Tammy, but I don't know what's going on. But me too, Tammy. But we aren't the only ones who see it, so I get it. Yeah. Could you imagine writing out an investigation for years and then out of nowhere you find something and have to start all over? No. All right, so let's listen.
They can put on the case. They
really
can say
for a second.
The conditions were horrible. They can say there's reasonable doubt. They could say the eyewitnesses weren't great. There's not enough time. There was probably 2 people. There's no weapon. They can say all that stuff, right? All right. The verdict is in. People are saying, I thought it was going to be 3 o'clock.
Mm.
That they're seeing, okay, it's in already. It's in already. It's in already. Guilty. Everybody is saying guilty. Okay, I have not seen it.
Okay.
People are saying defense diaries posted it, so let's go check that out. Confirm here.
Oh, I see, Tammy. Well,
all right. 1 minute ago, Richard Allen has been found guilty on all counts. I'm going to put it up here so we can take a look at it so that people can see it.
Even though hopefully they're jerks, but you never know.
For those that may come in late or join late, you can see verdict reached in Richard Allen's case. I get it.
Wait.
I get here that the guy confessed to it. Okay. And again, I see people angry in the chat. I get it.
This is the part.
I get that people are angry, that are upset, that believe this is an injustice. And I'm a big fan of justice. But I think we have to realize when we think about this jury, right? Even Bob said it. You want to go back, listen to the podcast. We talked about this a lot. If you confess to something, it is really, really difficult to overcome. That's why we were talking about percentages of, cases we have confessions on as lawyers. It's a small percentage.
So that is all. I'm going to drop the link. I just wanted to talk about all those little parts from all these different, creators, but all of them are attorneys except for Hidden True Crime, but she was there. It's really interesting. Shay, thank you. I want to look as soon as they'll start releasing more evidence, I definitely want to take a closer look and kind of see, but I guess we'll have to wait and just see how things kind of shake out. There's still a gag order until sentencing. I'm going to drop the lawyer, one more time. Yeah, we can do a poll and end you guys up. Okay, so Melissa is live at 8. I'm going to drop her link with some Wade Wilson stuff. And then Bendy is on at 9:30 for some Sarah Boone behavior panel stuff. So I'm going to drop that too. And then I want to drop just two of my mods that have their businesses, Lori, and then Nay, who just put out some different scents. She does wax melts. Lori does beard balm, and Nay just released some new wax melts. So our fall fragrances. Okay, so let's do a quick poll, and then I'm going to let you guys go. What should I ask? Are you disappointed? How do you feel about the verdict? That's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. And I'll let you guys go. But, I probably won't take a closer look again until we get more information. It's so hard. I just hate not being able to hear and see it. And it's not that I don't trust people who were there and their descriptions of things, especially if you watch from multiple places. It's easier to get an idea of kind of what was going on and what was presented. But I'd like to see it when we can see it for ourselves. Okay. How do you feel about today's verdict? Disappointed, satisfied. Who knows? You don't know. Yes, Melissa, you don't ever want to rely on another person's interpretation. I don't know. I just feel like I disagree. I don't see the same things people see oftentimes in these situations when we're watching trials and seeing evidence. But okay, one other thing that is important I need to mention to you guys. What the heck is up with Dr. Pepper? Every one I buy lately is flat when I open it. Is that happening to you guys? It is so frustrating. Not important at all. Well, it is somewhat important, but not relevant at all. It's important if you're a soda lover, but it's just something that I was thinking about because I brought one out here with me while we were while I was live, and it was terrible. Hey, real Pocahontas. Been a minute. Yes. See? What is going on? That sucks. Okay. Who knows? Disappointed 62%, satisfied 12%, who knows 25%. Wow. Damn, and that's so sad. 12% satisfied. At the end of the day, these are the lives of 2 young girls who knows what they would have became, and a man who has a family and has a kid of his own. It really, 12%, that's freaking sad. I'm just so sorry to see and hear that. But thank you, Shay, because I'm really not happy about it. I don't even think they're a real doctor. Nay, there's no way. That's crazy numbers. I'm usually satisfied. Yeah. I didn't vote. I'm confused. Nicole B., do you think he's guilty so you are satisfied with it? Or you don't think he's guilty, so you're disappointed, or the who knows is just I don't really feel like I have enough information to make a decision. All right, you guys. So I hope to see you. Lori says, night, everyone. Justice was served. Mayla's mom. Shake one up. That's a good idea, Remy. All right, you guys. So I hope to see you over at Melissa's and Jen's tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow for sure. I'm going to drop their links again. Check out all the channels that we played today. I think that you guys will enjoy it if you're interested in this. Most of you have probably seen them all, but strictly a Coke girl. I like Coke too. I like Mellow Yellow, but they didn't have any, so... All right. Thank you guys for everything. I will see you tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a morning live tomorrow. Today, my intentions, I had thought about it, but the kids didn't have school today. So this was the first opportunity I had to hop on. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.